So I'm Kathleen, senior sociology major, obviously. And I worked at St. Vincent's Villa this semester. So just like Allison's internship, it is run by Catholic Charities, which was created in 1792 to help the poor with a portion of parish revenues. And then in 1923, the church began combining services to increase innovation. And now it offers 80 programs and is the leading human services provider in Maryland. And the mission is cherishing the divine within all. St. Vincent's Villa is the residential treatment center associated with Catholic Charities, and its mission is to give each child a comprehensive evaluation to determine a treatment plan that addresses the therapeutic needs of the child and their guardians. It serves children ages 5 to 13 with significant behavioral and emotional needs who have not responded to community-based interventions and services through intensive diagnostic and stabilization programs. And it's also located in Cockeysville, Maryland, but the public bus is the last stop. So it's able to be accessed by loved ones visiting the kids, which they can do with their group on Sundays. And in my interview there, my supervisor basically explained St. Vincent's Villa to me as a place where children who have suffered a lot in their childhood can enjoy being a child and get the support they need, because their needs surpass what foster care and outpatient therapy can help them. So the center is comprised of 2 residential programs, a 90-day diagnostic evaluation and treatment program, and a residential treatment center. And there are 6 units within the center. So Ambrose is all girls, Genesis 5 to 6-year-olds, Mercy 11 to 13-year-olds, Therese is 9 to 10, DePaula 7 to 8, and Aquinas is all boys. So I work in the Mercy unit, which is pretty vast, but so I work with children 11 to 13 years old, and it's comprised of a therapist, discharge coordinator, nurse, psychiatrist, community specialist, unit manager, and 4 residential treatment counselors. I had a picture of myself right there, but I just had to take it out because it was weird. But I work among the residential treatment counselors, like hands-on with the kids. But each unit has a similar amount of staff and support. And then there's also a resource team that comes in. If you press a button on the walkies, it's basically if a kid is being a danger to themselves or the staff, which happens a lot. The services it offers are residential treatment, diagnostic services, individual, family, and group therapy, case management, psychological testing, 24/7 nursing care, psychiatric evaluation, treatment, and medication management, level 5 non-public school and type 3 diagnostic classroom, school placement coordination, recreational and therapeutic activities and mentors, therapeutic trauma-informed living environment, and aftercare planning. As for the trauma-informed approach, the center really nail this into our heads in training. So basically, a trauma-informed approach emphasizes that it's necessary to understand how trauma affects children's ability to manage their emotions so that staff can respond in a way that decreases their stress. So studies show that when children experience early adversity, it directly affects the developing and the functioning of their brains. They're always on high alert. Because of their trauma, they're basically always on survival mode. Their amygdala, getting into science, which is right there, is extra sensitive and sends danger messages when there's no real danger, and survival brain takes over. So they don't think consciously, even though they're not in danger. But they think they are because of their past experiences. So a typical day, I put it in quotations because there really isn't a typical day. I usually arrive at around 3:30, and at that point, the children are still coming home from their respective schools. So they all go to different schools depending on their needs. So they put their stuff in the locker, get a snack. They aren't allowed to bring their backpacks into the main area for safety reasons, but they can get homework out and put it in their room for later. But usually then I sit, eat their snacks for them. No, they eat their snacks too. And I talk to them about their days, and then the activities for the rest of the night depend on their behavior from the night before and at school. So if they behaved poorly or were suspended, they get sent to the back for the night, which means they stay in their room. If they're not in the back, they go to the gym or have outside time. I typically go outside or to the gym with them, and I run around, play basketball or tag, but mainly make sure they're being safe with each other and themselves and being inclusive. Next, they take showers by sex. So those of them that identify as trans take them later on individually. But when the boys are in the shower, I hang out with the girls and play games and color, and make sure they're being safe. And then when the girls are in the shower, I sit in the shower room with, because there has to be someone watching them at all times. Afterwards, they have free time where they can watch TV with staff supervision, play games, or do work. Some days they have group therapy during that time or individual therapy. And they can also make a phone call to someone approved by DSS, which is the Department of Social Services. So this could be a family member, a mentor, or a foster parent, or just someone they want to talk to. That's allowed. And the phone calls are monitored by staff. And then the nurse comes around before bedtime to give them medication, and in the morning as well. And so 7:30 is technically bedtime, but it's more wind down time because it's pretty early. So they go into their rooms, but this is the time I'm most popular because they want me to come in and talk to them. So I love talking, so it's great. So I usually read to them and talk to them about their day. I read whatever they want me to read. And then I usually leave around 9 when it's time for them to sleep. So the backgrounds of the children I work with include victims of child abuse. This includes neglect, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and psychological abuse. And abused and neglected children are 11 times more likely to engage in criminal behavior as an adult. And they're more likely to report overall lower health than others. And some have also witnessed domestic violence, which causes emotional and behavioral problems, impaired cognitive development, physical health problems, poor social skills, and an increased risk of violence. In utero, drug exposure was one I saw a lot in their charts, which includes opioids, marijuana, and alcohol. So if your mom used opioids during pregnancy, it causes babies to be born in withdrawal. So they still do take opioids because they're still getting it out of their system because they were born addicted. So a lot of them experience tremors, irritability, feeding difficulties, sleep disturbances, and cognitive defects. The one that shocked me the most, I think I almost threw up the first day, was interfamilial homicide. So a lot of them have seen one of their family members get killed by another family member. So other than grief, the effects are PTSD, disrupted attachment, social isolation, behavioral and academic problems. And so a majority of the children have a history of violent outbreaks. So they're in custody of the state. They not only can't be with their parents, but foster parents can't take care of them either. If they're not in custody of the state or their biological parents, the center works to look for foster parents, or they work with the family they're paired with to give the family therapy as well. So in terms of sociological applications, there is definitely every day something new. But for my research paper, I will be examining the relationship between adverse childhood experiences and intergenerational trauma. I picked this topic because from the moment I began working at St. Vincent's Villa, I felt very strongly about how the things the children struggle with and what their parents struggle with were not their faults or their parents' faults, but society had pretty obviously failed them. And their trauma was intergenerational. So in terms of social learning theory, which we learn through observing others, so crime and criminal behavior is learned. This connects to the cycle of neglect and abuse. Social control theory connects to how children experience adverse childhood experiences are more likely to develop negative self-concepts, have lower levels of social support and weaker bonds with schools, so that they're more vulnerable to negative influences, which further harms their social bonds. And then critical race theory, which is helpful to understand the relationship between adverse childhood experiences and intergenerational trauma in American youth, through its highlighting the impact of structural racism has on children and communities. And so I've also observed the school to prison pipeline and sexual abuse to prison pipeline. During my orientation, I was told that St. Vincent's Villa is basically the next stop or the closest thing to juvenile detention, like right before it or instead of it. So when I read the charts of a lot of the children, they've all tried to kill either their parent, a guardian, or themselves. And a lot of them brought knives or guns to school, which puts you in front of a judge right away. So usually a judge will tell you if you're going to juvenile detention or something like St. Vincent's Villa, depending on also your social worker. So from what I've seen of the population of the children in my unit, Black boys are the minority, which means they either get out before they get to my 11 and 13 age group, or they're in juvenile detention, which I found notable. And then also children are constantly suspended. This can be 1 or 2 days, but at one point, one child was suspended for 10 days. So you have to be reevaluated for your IEP. And then they miss out on 10 days of school. And the disengagement just contributes to their alienation and disconnection. And then as for sexual abuse to prison pipeline, that's basically the ways in which gendered violence leads children to juvenile justice system because of their victimization. Many of the children, I'd say like probably 99% of them, had been sexually abused, and a few of them ran away or were truant, which puts them in suspension or expulsion, and then they're back into the environment of abuse if not taken care of properly. So my highlights, a lot of them. So I don't know if you guys remember me talking about that kid who was older and he was really great, but he couldn't get adopted. So the Ed Block Courage Award is basically every NFL team has a Courage House where at-risk kids live, and they pick a kid to get an award for their bravery. So he won it. And so the Ravens came to St. Vincent's Villa, and like one member from every team. So I got to go that day and it was a lot of fun, but he got to wear a suit and get his hair cut, and it made me so happy. That was on the news, so it's fine that there's a picture of him. Definitely the experience I'm getting in the area of social work, because I'm interested in it, but I really got to just jump in the deep end of it, make sure I like it. The connections I have with the children, something I'm really gonna miss. My confidence in how I can handle difficult situations, like getting kicked or waterboard on me. And then finally, I got to develop a report on the case of one of the children to present to the staff to help assess if she should be released. And she was a child I got really close with, and she's being released in May. And then some things I have necessities to work at it. You must have thick skin and be able to deal with angry, upset, and happy children. You probably should be dealing with your own trauma because a lot of things come up. Assertive, open-minded, confidence. Definitely advocate for yourself. I found that unlike my other internships, I wasn't being told what people were doing. Like I really had to ask, like, why are you filling out that form? Or like, what's this, what's that? And then be able to walk away, which I can't say I can do yet because I was supposed to end at 120 hours, but I asked if I could still come in once a week. So yeah, we'll figure that out. Things I would change is I wish there were more enrichment activities for the children to find and celebrate their strengths. It might be like a camp counselor of me, but I wish there was like a basketball team or like dance, because a lot of them love that stuff and coming together, but they're not really allowed to do it. And finally, I'd like them to have more freedom so that they can learn more coping skills even. I know one girl came up to me and like asked for a coping skill for something, and I obviously had to refer her elsewhere. But when I looked it up on Google, it was like, listen to music or take a walk or dance. And it was like, she can't listen to music. They don't have radios. Like she can dance, but there's no music. And same as like drawing and stuff like that. Not all of them are allowed to have drawing things in their room depending on the situation, but I just wish it was easier for them to find out that stuff. And then here are some activities I worked on with the students. My favorite is having courage means being separate from my family. I work hard, I'm smart, I'm kind. But in conclusion, I really love my time there. It's definitely been the most emotionally taxing work I've ever done. But I realized this is the population I want to work with, possibly not at a residential treatment center just because of the burnout. But yeah, I would definitely like to work with this population. So that was great to find out. Yeah.
Questions?
How often, or if you know, do kids like who are released, is there like them coming back or? So it's funny because a few of them knew each other from before. So like some of them come in at 6 and then come back at 11 or like, but they let that happen because like there will be times when you go back to your family and then you'll need support for 2 weeks because like the child is having a rough time. So they make it so that so the girl I'm working with who's getting released in May, she's going home every weekend right now. So they kind of like test the waters and then she comes back on Monday and they like go over how that process was. And then like she'll be dropped off on Friday and they'll go in and talk about how the week went. So they kind of like start to slowly implement them back into a home life, but they do expect her to come back like next year at some point, but not for 7 months, for probably like a couple of weeks. So yeah, there's.
So after the age of 13, if you're not released, where do the kids go? Do they go to like another center?
Yeah, so that's one of the things I also have an issue with that I should have put up there. But for example, the kid I was talking about on the previous slide, he's 13 and he's not being adopted. And so they usually go to group homes, but the group homes in Maryland they don't have space or they're not opening till you're 15. So for a lot of them, I think they'll probably bend the rules a little bit for him. But yeah, usually it's just like back into foster care for a lot of them, or they go to, depending on their needs, Shepherd Pratt, which is more of like if they have psychiatric issues that are pretty bad, but yeah, it is.
My mom is a unit manager at a similar facility in Sacramento, and she's seen that the turnover rate of staff has a large impact on children specifically, and making connections with staff and feeling comfortable. But like you mentioned very briefly, like burnout is insane in these like spaces and professions. So have you seen that there is a high turnover rate? And if there is, have like the children like been impacted by that?
Yeah, that's one of the things I was looking at because I was talking to my mom actually about like doing this in the future. But when I was talking to one of my coworkers, he only gets 10 days off, which makes sense because he's there every day, like every hour, and they love him. But he's exhausted, like it's mentally tolling. So I haven't, from what I've seen a few people leave because we've had going away parties, but I haven't really seen like in my unit turnover more. So like the group therapist has changed, but I know that like the part-time workers are much happier than the full-time workers, just because it is very exhausting having to work with such a tough population, but also be on all the time. But he's really like everything to them. But it's sad because like even when I came in and I was like, oh, I'm an intern, and they're like, so you're leaving? Oh, yeah, sorry, but yes.
Sorry, what do you do after like you've had a very stressful like training day at this internship? Like let's say you found out something about a kid that just really left you distraught. Like how do you kind of center yourself back when you get back home?
Yeah, it's tough because it's 9 o'clock when I get like it's dark, it's late, so I can't really go for a run. But usually I just want to be alone. I just like my alone time. Maybe like have ice cream or cider or something and like decompress, or I write about it. But yeah, it's hard to like be around people when I'm back because I'm like come from such a like more sad area, and then you're like home and happy and whoa, you to balance this. So I try to be alone.
Does the program offer any support or assistance with maybe supporting the family members in getting their loved ones back? Like if they're not just mentally ready or physically ready to take on this child, but they want to take on the child, is there any support or type of system for them to be supported so they can take back their loved one?
Yeah, so they do family and group therapy. The pre-COVID, the families would come in every Tuesday, or whoever was going to be taking care of them. Post-COVID, they do like group online therapy to work with the families. I haven't really seen that side of things, but my manager, he's a social worker and he like is constantly on to them. As well as like we've had kids go to the hospital for various reasons, and like each family member is kind of paired up with a staff so that they can contact them about anything. But yeah, so they do support them through therapy. And like, for example, the girl that's going home in May, like kind of placing her back home, but like being there. And then once they're released, they can still come back. They come back every few weeks for like a check-in.
The organization pretty open to, I guess, maybe new innovative ways in supporting the students in a sense of them just sort of venting in therapy. Because I know, like you said, they don't have music, they don't have cell phones. In that sense, it's practically a jail, but like are there any other ways in a sense, like, you know, last week, we was talking about how therapeutic courses were. Could you ever see like that being a possible way, not for the course of the
Yeah.
but just a bit more collaborative in different ways to engage with the students?
Yeah, I definitely see in other units as well that I don't want to say it seems more fun, but it does seem more fun. They like play music and they like go outside more and they like have more freedom. In our unit, I guess it's because they're older. They can't really like, if we do have a dance time, like it gets inappropriate fast, so it's like can't really do that. But I think they could find a happy medium for sure. Even just giving them radios. I know like the Ravens donated money to them, so I know they have enough money to do that. I just don't know why. But yeah,
Do you also check on them when they're in school, like during the day?
so certain children go to a special school on like almost on the campus. It's Villa Maria School. So they're the ones that have been like suspended for 10 days and just need more help in schools. But the other ones, usually a teacher is in contact with the manager. And like sometimes the staff go pick them up and everything. So that's how you know when there's like suspended and stuff like that, or what happens. There's usually a report, usually the school social worker, but yeah, so that's how, but if they need more support, they go to the school on site.
Thank you.